Welcome to Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation possible. You will get to hear from CSIA system integrators and industry partners to get a better understanding of how they help their clients solve process challenges and how they've earned success in their careers. Along the way, we will touch on system integration best practices, technology, trends, and challenges. Whether you are a manufacturer, end user, supplier, or system integrator, you will enjoy the insights these industry professionals bring to this podcast. Let's get started. Hi, my name is Lisa Richter, the host of Talking Industrial Automation, a podcast where you get to know the people who make modern industrial automation and processing possible. In today's episode, we're talking industrial automation with Ira Sharp, who is the Director of Product Marketing Automation at Phoenix Contact USA. Ira has over 18 years of experience in industrial automation with a focus on open control, IIoT, Industry 4.0, networking, and cybersecurity. Over the past 15 years, he has led marketing, engineering, and sales teams to run a multi-million-dollar product portfolio. In addition, Ira has an active digital presence as a LinkedIn content creator focused on automation and as a co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club and on the board of advisors for IIoT World. Ira was named a who's who for IIoT on the annual Analytica report in 2021 and 2022. And he was named the top 100 IoT influencers by CBT. Ira, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So let's start with how you got here. Tell me a little bit about, did the career choose you or did you choose the career?
Yeah. So Lisa, this is a great question because growing up, going through college, I really had a couple of different jobs, but the main thing I ended up doing through college was sales. And what I did was I worked at a lot of retail establishments. And in doing that, there was one thing that I definitely didn't want to do when I graduated from school, and that was go into sales and marketing. And then sure enough, I get out of school and I end up in sales and marketing. I think the career kind of tracked me down, but I graduated from school as an electrical engineer from Penn State University. And at the time, I was actually planning on going somewhere else, but I had actually met my now wife, but girlfriend then at the time in high school. So we're high school sweethearts. And it kind of kept me in the area here. And I took this as a good opportunity to do something and get involved. And sure, there's a couple of different areas I would have liked to have gone in and things if I had to look back on it. But I really do enjoy it. And I think it works out pretty well for my personality and what I do. And so electrical engineer by degree and sales and marketing through college. And then, ended up here kind of in the end. It's good stuff.
Do you specialize in any industry, product, or discipline?
So it's really interesting being a director of marketing at Phoenix Contact. I didn't start there. I've had a long career at Phoenix Contact. I've been at Phoenix Contact for 17 and a half years now. And when I first started at Phoenix Contact, I was a product marketing specialist in wireless communications. So one of the things I got to do was travel around the country and see all different types of applications. And the company I work for, Phoenix Contact, is a very well-known component supplier for many different types of industrial applications. And we're involved in things from automotive to material handling to process automation and all these areas in between. And supporting the product that I did of wireless, I got to really dig in and use my engineering skills to really understand the fundamentals, the way things work. I published some early papers early on in my career at fundamentally how wireless communications works in industrial applications. So I would say definitely have some propensities towards technology and like wireless communications, and then looking at it in process and factory automation, how you can deal with Wi-Fi and all these different interference sources or in refineries and how all works there. So definitely have some strong understanding there. And then as I've progressed through my career, I've got to experience a lot of other kind of things in the automation space, from networking and cybersecurity and how all that goes together to control and launching one of the first open control platforms in PLC Next, all the way to being a thought leader in Industry 4.0 and IoT on LinkedIn and other places as well. So I'd say, it's a little bit of a jack of many trades. Hopefully I'm a master of one or two. I don't know, but I have my hands and my fingers in a couple of different pots.
I'm going to go completely off script here and ask you a little bit about LinkedIn, because you mentioned that, you're kind of a little bit of an influencer there. What are your tips for people who maybe are a little reluctant to get on the socials? What are some tips for success?
So first of all, it's weird because I guess I do have a decent following and I do get a pretty good reaction to a lot of my posts, but I don't really consider myself an influencer per se, and I didn't seek out to do that. So one of the things that I did was I really just got started. And I think that's the biggest tip that I can give anybody is simply get started. Post some things out there, or even better than that, if that's intimidating, because I talk to a lot of people and they don't know what to post. And yeah, you probably don't, and that's fine. They're afraid to post because they're afraid of what people may comment, but don't worry. If it's not a great post, nobody's going to see it anyways. It's a little bit of a joke. The thing is, find something you're interested in, find other people that are posting about it, whether they're influencers or not, doesn't matter, and comment on it. And then when I say comment, don't say great post, thanks a lot, looking forward to following you. Provide your insight, whether you agree or disagree, because that's one of the things that I like about doing what I do on LinkedIn and really creating the content on there is not to showcase my knowledge or anything else. It's frankly to have a conversation. And I like to really learn in public, which can be scary at times because I post things out to really get a conversation going and have that back and forth. But one of the biggest things I would say is if you do want to get involved, and if you're particularly inclined in one area or another, whether it be in manufacturing or otherwise, is just find somebody else or other people that are posting about things, read about things. And if you find it interesting, comment about it with your own insights. And most likely you'll get a response back. And that's how you start the very, very early steps of gaining notoriety on the platform.
So getting back to business here, what challenges are your customers facing right now?
So when you look at the customers of Phoenix Contact, which are the customers that we'll be talking about here, it's a wide array of customers from, like I said, process automation to industrial automation, material handling, automotive, food and bev, across the board. We have components that go in pretty much every type of control cabinet that's out there. And the biggest challenges that people are facing here recently has been supply chain, figuring out where things are, can they get things in? And then it's really a matter of space quality and having a good install for their customers. These are all key considerations as somebody is developing a system and putting it in. A lot of who we sell to are what we call OEM machine builders. And that can be in the process environment or in standard discrete manufacturing markets where people will build equipment and then they'll sell it to a user like a Frito-Lay or, a Tesla or whoever else is actually making a finished good. And a lot of times these OEMs that are building the machines, they have to do sometimes high production. They need quality machines so that they keep their good quality name, and they need to make sure that they're meeting the demands of their user, meaning it works, it's started up quickly, it's providing the data that they need. So all these things are super important to our customers. And to our end users, the people that are ultimately going to be utilizing the products, I would say some of the biggest things that we're hearing about are like from a CEO level, and you've seen this even in some IoT Analytica reports, is sustainability and what this means. And this is important not only to the company culture, to the employees, to the bottom line. The more sustainable you become, typically the less energy and other carbon emitting components you're utilizing, the more profitable you can become as long as you can do it in an economical way. So sustainability is a big piece. It's a big buzzword and means a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it is driving a lot of what the customers are trying to achieve.
In your opinion, what's the biggest challenge facing the automation marketplace today and in the future?
If you look at the biggest challenge, it's been said a lot, but I think there's a changing of the guard that's happening where we've talked for a long time about the baby boom generation retiring and new entrants coming in and the skilled work and all this gap, and it's there. Now, the interesting thing is that I'm kind of curious what happens with the advancements in AI and this generative AI. Is it able to capture any of this knowledge? Are we able to get any of this from the past generations that may be doing things for quite some time, whether they're directly inputting things, whether that information is obtained by the way the machine systems and processes are working and looking at the way they're interacted with, to try to preserve that intellectual knowledge or institutional knowledge that can only really happen from being there, from working on these things and really leveraging these things. So I would say that changing of the guard is one of the big things that's happening. And when you really look at how that can be mitigated, there's some new tools that are pretty cutting edge. I think the jury's still out and kind of how everything will pull together, with the AI and the AI front and the generative AI front. But bottom line is, it's a topic. It's something that's being considered, and that is a problem that needs to be solved. And getting more data and then making that data information so it can actually be usable by whoever to make better informed decisions about operations is going to be paramount. If you look at manufacturers, you look at users, you look at anybody that's producing a machine system or process or going into the market, I truly believe that the commodity of what you're selling is half the battle, but collecting the data and harvesting that data so you can make yourself more efficient to make others more efficient by selling that data. This data whole craze here, it's the new gold rush. It's the new oil boom, whatever it is. And using that data to make meaningful, informed decisions is going to be paramount.
Come closer, my little chickadees. I want to share a little known fact about CSIA membership. Are you ready? Here it is. This is the best time of year to join. Why? Because CSIA dues are prorated, which is just a fancy way of saying that when you sign up to become a CSIA member now, you will get the rest of this year and all of next year included in your membership dues. Plus, the same is true for any CSIA Industrial Automation Exchange upgrade or package. Of course, CSIA membership is value-packed no matter when you join, but it's kind of nice when you feel like you got a little something off the secret menu. You know what I mean? For more details, visit www.controlsys.org/shine. What are you waiting for? Let CSIA help you and your entire team achieve big things. What makes you optimistic about the future of the automation industry?
I'm just generally an optimistic person. But in addition to that, I mentioned about some of the big challenges that are in front of us. And when you really look at some of the new technologies, and I think we're going to get into some of the new technologies, it's great to see that a lot of them are data focused. There's a lot of things that are coming down the pike. And I would say as a whole, the industry is becoming a little bit more open to some changes. Rightfully so. The industrial industry is very resistant to change. And I think it's resistant to change because nobody wants to touch a running system. It's producing stuff, why touch it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And there is a lot of truth to that. But if you can produce something and do it at a lower carbon footprint or at a lower price or with fewer resources, whatever it may be, there's some great advantages there. And I think today there is a little bit more openness to looking into some of these things. And there are some catalysts for this to help drive it. Things like Amazon. Amazon is an absolutely amazing company when you think of them from a logistical standpoint, that you can buy almost anything from them and they can have it to you in a matter of 2 days at your door, all pretty much using data to figure out who's going to be buying what, where, and then putting that all the way down to the logistics system to send things out. Then you look at companies like Tesla that have used data to modernize an industry that's been very fixed for some time in automotive and improving their manufacturing processes through data, but then also making machines, cars that update. And yes, there's recalls that happen, but those recalls are typically updated by firmware. I mean, these are some pretty amazing things. Whether you like those companies or not and the way they work and all those things, that's not really the point. The point is there is, I think, a more openness to change from a manufacturing perspective. And I think some of these companies, like I mentioned, are really early examples of not only how to do it, but how to do it and be successful in implementing those changes. So it's an exciting time.
I mean, I remember when Amazon was just books. Remember that way back in the day? I literally ordered a battery for my laptop this morning. It's going to be here by 10 o'clock tonight. It's amazing.
I know. And seriously, think about that for a minute. I mean, how do they know what to stock, when to stock it, how to ship it, and all these things? Because you might need a battery tomorrow, whatever it is. And it's really all about data, forecasting, being as good as you can with it, and being able to deliver on it. It's some pretty amazing stuff.
I also ordered from Whole Foods this week, which I don't very often do, but I was lazy. And it all came in very sustainable packaging. Like even the plastic bags were home compostable, which I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive given everything they've got going on. I'm appreciative of it.
Yeah. And that sustainability craze, like personally, I really like it. It's interesting to me because it's not just a bottom line thing. It's not just a CEO wants to look good thing. It's a thing when we talked earlier about like, okay, changing of the guard and trying to be a little bit more open. I'm getting a little older. I'm no longer the youngest person in my company anymore. I once upon a time was, but it seems like as you hire new employees, it's much about the job. It's much about what they're able to do, but it's also about the company and what you're doing to be sustainable in the point of, are you just wasting resources and these kind of things? It's an interesting time, again, to see how all of this plays out on the grander scale.
So being as you are on the vendor side and involved in a lot of different industry communities, what are the trends and future topics in manufacturing that you're seeing?
I think I've already mentioned a few of them here, but to really boil it down, I think some trends are, I mentioned data, okay, but not just data. Like that's half the battle, collecting the data, but then utilizing that data to make more informed decisions to become a better operation. Other things are, as a sustainability effort, some things outside of those two would be cybersecurity. Cybersecurity was very important and is and will maintain being extremely important moving forward, because as more data is moving, more things are networked, there is going to be more vulnerabilities possible. We didn't get into it, but when you look at some of the new technologies like TSN and APL, which are new networking technologies, this is extending different types of network connectivity all the way out to the quote unquote simplest of devices, which is amazing for the data you can get back. But wow, does that increase your attack surface? So cybersecurity, how you're dealing with that, how you're looking at it is really important. And then openness. So I've been in the industry for almost 18 years. And of course, it was there long before I came in. But when you look at it from a control system perspective, most control systems are ladder diagram, put it in a PLC, and you run your operation. And that's wonderful. It's very maintainable. There's lots of reasons to do that. People have specific platforms they like to use because of the way that they've operated for years. But there is more, quote unquote, openness to looking at new languages, maybe using things like Python, maybe using C or C#, and actually using that on the factory floor. There are advantages and disadvantages that come along with that. The advantages are, wow, you can do so much more than you could before in a simple ladder diagram using something that is a more open platform. We have one called PLC Next that allows those types of operations, but also becomes disadvantages because then you need to be able to maintain that in some way, shape, or form, which is harder to do than it was with just simple ladder diagram because of just the way the rungs work and things. So there are advantages and disadvantages, and all this has to be considered in the way that things are operating. But again, just looking at everything, these big trends, this being considered and really needing to look at automation in new ways to be able to get the higher performance that systems need for manufacturers to really be competitive in the next generation of all of them, just maintaining their competitive nature in the industry.
How do you see that impacting the kinds of work that integrators do?
So when you look at integrators, which I know is a core audience here, I see there really being two types of integrators. One integrator could do both functions for sure, but I think there's two types of integrators. There's what I would call classical integration. I call it that just because that's largely what's known. You do system integration where there's instrumentation and there's a control system. You do the pipe and wire, you do the programming, you get the operation going, and you have the machine running. You own the machine operation. This can be done with, like I said, the different languages, or it could be done with ladder. In a lot of cases, just from a maintenance perspective, that's probably going to be done with the traditional IEC 61131 type of programming environment, which is the standard way you program in a PLC. Then there's a different kind of integrator that is evolving. And I believe this is more of an IoT or a data integrator or something along those lines. I don't know if it's clearly been defined in the industry. I have my own terms for it, but I don't know if it's clearly been defined, integrator 4.0, if you call it that. And what they really focus on is not the classical system operation, but the connection from the OT to the IT and the data layers. So how are you communicating the data? Which data are you taking? How is it going? How are you naming that data and what conventions so it can be scaled out? Because all of this is key, maybe now, but definitely in the future. And those data structures are going to be critical. There are definitely good integrators and solid large integrators that can do both of those functions, but they are two very unique functions. And I think they're two different skill sets as well. So that's my view on it. And again, like I said, I like to learn in public. So, I would be interested in, if anybody's listening to this and you disagree, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear about it. But this is something I like to talk about too, as in some of the other communities that I'm involved in.
So switching gears completely here, if you had to choose a completely different career, what would you choose?
I think I would just like to be that guy that puts up the umbrellas on the beach. And okay. I mean, I honestly, that is what I want to do, but I said it early on and kind of rushed through it, but I'm a double E, right? I did sales through school. I did okay at it and I graduated and I had to stay in the area. So the job kind of found me because I didn't want to move. And it's been a great marriage ever since, my wife and my career. But, I always wanted to be a programmer. Now, when I tell that to people, because I lead a decent team and I'm on stage and I talk to people and these kind of things. And I know there's programmers, of course, talk to people, but they think it's odd because put me in a dark room, give me a keyboard, and I just want to pound away and write code all day. I would love that. Now, I don't know if I can do it anymore. I've lost a lot of those coding skills, but I'd really like to just be a coder. I just think there's so much greatness that comes with having that blank canvas, envisioning on something that you can do, writing the code to get it done, executing it, and shipping it out. And then of course there's the maintenance that comes along with that. But it's just such an amazing thing. And I've always enjoyed doing that kind of thing. So if I could pick a different thing besides being the person that sets up the umbrellas, I'd probably pick programming or coding. By the way, it would be coding and programming consumer electronics because I just think that's cool as well.
What's the best advice you could give your younger self just getting started?
I think the best advice that I could give my younger self just getting started is, so right out of school, I actually started my own company. It was a development company and I had created a product and I was trying to bring it to market. It was probably good that I gave up on it because I had wasted too much money on it. But I would go back and I would tell myself to maybe just give it a little bit more time and push it a little bit forward just to see where it goes. Because, at this point in my life, I'm a little bit older. I have a mortgage. I have a wife. I have 4 kids, 2 dogs, 2 cats, a bearded dragon, and 4 chickens. There's a lot of responsibility on my plate. At that time, I had a wife, but I didn't have all the other things holding me down at that point. So taking the risk then is really what I would tell myself to do. And if it worked out, great. And if it didn't, that's okay too. It would just chalk it up to a larger learning experience.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Talking Industrial Automation. If you are interested in learning more about Ira or Phoenix Contact, you can find them on the Industrial Automation Exchange at www.csiexchange.com. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Ira, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also really help the show by leaving a review and sharing with colleagues. We're all just slaves to the logarithm now, so I gotta ask. Thanks for listening to the Talking Industrial Automation podcast. Thanks also to bensound.com and Wistia for the music bumpers. Until next time.